and welcome to Chapter 7, Mr. Changeabout and the Enchanter. Everyone stared at Mr. Changeabout. At least, as he was the only person in the room, they thought that was who he must be. He got up and came towards them. He was a fat, comfortable-looking person with a broad smile on his face. What a lot of visitors, he said. Do sit down. There was nowhere to sit except for on a stone floor, which looked rather cold, so nobody sat down. Something happened to Mr. Changeabout when nobody obeyed him. He grew tall and thin. His broad smile disappeared, and a frown came over all his face, and he looked a very unpleasant person. Sit down, he roared. Everybody sat down in a hurry. Mr. Changeabout looked at the saucepan man, who had sat down with a tremendous clatter. Have you got a nice little kettle that would boil enough water to make 2 mugs of hot chocolate? He asked. Mr. Saucepan Man did not hear. So Joe shouted in his ear, and he beamed and got up and undid a little kettle, and he had on him. Just the thing, he said, handing it to Mr. Changeabout. Try it and see. Mr. Changeabout changed again and became happy-looking, with dancing eyes and a sweet smile. He took the kettle. Thank you, he said. So kind of you. Just what I wanted. Thank you very much. How much is it? Well, nothing at all, said the saucepan man. A present for you. Well, allow me to hand round some chocolate to you all in return for such a nice present. And he fetched an enormous box of chocolates from the cupboard. Everyone was pleased. Rick looked carefully into the box. When his turn came, his hand stretched out for the very biggest chocolate of all. Mr. Changeabout changed once again and flew into a rage. He became thin and mean-looking, his nose short out long, and his eyes grew small. Bad boy, greedy boy, he shouted. You shan't have any of my chocolates now, horrible, greedy children. And at once, all the chocolates changed into little hard stones. Beth had hers in her mouth, and she spat it out at once. The others looked disgusted. The old saucepan man gave a yell. I've swallowed mine, and now I suppose I've got a stone inside me. Oh, you nasty Mr. Changeabout, I'll show you what I think of your chocolates. And to everyone's surprise, Saucepan rushed at Mr. Changeabout, knocked his box of chocolates over on the floor, and began to shake him hard. Rattle, rattle, shake, shake, rattle, rattle, shake, shake. Gosh, how the old saucepan man shook Mr. Changeabout. And Mr. Changeabout tried to shake Saucepan back, but what good is that? Saucepan was so covered with so many pots and pans that nobody could possibly shake him about whatever they did without hurting themselves. Clang, clatter, clang, clatter, clash! The kettles and saucepans made an enormous noise, and everyone began to laugh, because really Saucepan looked too funny for words, dancing about on the floor, pushing and shaking Mr. Changeabout. Mr. Changeabout suddenly got very big and fierce-looking, but old saucepan man didn't seem to mind at all. He just went on shaking and pushing him and shouted, The bigger you are, the more I'm able to push, and the more there is to punish. So then Mr. Changeabout got very small, as small as a mouse, and ran squealing across the floor in fright. Quick as lightning, Saucepan picked him up, popped him into a kettle and put the lid on. Oh, Saucepan, whatever will you do next? Said Joe, wiping his tears of laughter from his eyes. I've never seen such a funny sight in all my life. Be careful, Mr. Changeabout doesn't squeeze out of the spout. I'll stuff it with paper, said Saucepan, tearing some of the box of chocolates. Now he's secure. Well, what shall we do next? We'd better get out of here, said Joe, standing up. He turned towards the doorway. But what was this? There was no doorway. And no door. Only a wall of rock that ran all around the underground room now. Oh, no. How do we get out? Said Joe, puzzled. This is a very magic kind of place. There's no window, of course, because we are underground, said Rick. What are we going to do? What about the chimney? Asked Frannie, running to the fire. It looks pretty big. Perhaps we could put the fire out and climb up. Well, that looks like our only chance of getting out of here, said Joe. He looked around for some water to put the fire out. He saw a water pump by the wall and went to it. He put the bucket underneath and pumped the handle up and down. The water was bright green, and it soon filled the bucket. Joe threw it on the fire. It made a terrific sizzling noise and went out at once. Puffs of clouds of green smoke went into the room. Joe stepped onto the dead fire and looked up the chimney. There's an iron ladder going right up, he said in excitement. Come on, we'll get dirty, but we can't help that. Hurry, before any more mysterious things happen. He went up the ladder. It was hot from the heat of the fire, but grew colder the higher he went. What a long chimney, called back Joe. Is everyone coming? Yes, yes, called six voices from below. Joe climbed steadily upwards. At last, the ladder came to an end. Joe clambered over the top of it and found himself in a very creepy place. This looks like some kind of cellar, he said to the others down as they scrambled up beside him. Look at all those sacks piled up. What do you think is in them? Let's look, said Rick, who was always curious about everything. He undid a sack, and good heavens, out poured a stream of bright gold pieces. Everyone looked at amazement. Somebody very rich must live here, said Joe at last. I've never seen so much gold. I can't believe that all the sacks are full of it. He undid another sack and out poured gold again. Just as everyone was running their fingers through it, marvelling at the gleam and the shine of so much gold, they heard quick footsteps overhead. A door above them opened, and a gleam of sunlight shone through onto the flight of stone steps leading from the cellar door. A tall man in a pointed hat looked down. Gosh, it's an enchanter, whispered Moonface in fright. He must still be in the land of spells. Oh dear. Robbers! Thieves! Burglars! Shouted the enchanter in a loud voice. Guards, come here! Capture these robbers. They are after my gold. See, they have undone 2 sacks already. We don't want your gold, said Rick. We only wanted to know what was in all these sacks. I don't believe you, cried the enchanter, as about a small dozen elves came running past him down the steps to the cellar. Capture them, guards, and lock them up. The elves pulled everyone up the cellar steps into a big sunlit room. Its ceiling was so high that nobody could see it. Now, lock them up, he commanded. Moonface suddenly snatched a kettle from the saucepan and snapped the string that tied it to him, and he went towards the enchanter fearlessly. Wait, he cried, much to the surprise of all of the others. Wait, before you do this foolish thing. I am an enchanter too, and in this kettle I have Mr. Changeabout. Yes, he is a prisoner there. And let me tell you this, that if you dare to lock me up, I'll put you into this kettle too with Mr. Changeabout. From the kettle came a small, squeaky voice. Set me free, enchanter! Set me free! Oh, do set me free! The enchanter turned quite pale. He knew it was Mr. Changeabout's voice. This is most peculiar, he said. How did you capture Mr. Changeabout? He's a very powerful person and a great friend of mine. I'm not going to tell you what magic I used, said Moonface boldly. Now, are you going to let us go, or shall I put you into this kettle too? I'll let you go, said the enchanter, and he waved them all towards the door at the end of the room. You may leave at once. Everyone rushed to the door gladly, and they all ran through it, expecting to come out into the sunshine. But they didn't. The enchanter had played a trick on them. They found themselves going up many hundreds of stairs, up and up and up, and when they came to the top, there was nothing but a round room with a small window. A bench stood at one end and a table at the other. The enchanter's voice floated up to them. Ho, 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 I've got you nicely. I'm going to get my friend Wizardy Wiz, and he'll soon tell me how to deal with robbers like you. We are in a trap, groaned Joe. Moonface, you are very clever and very brave, but honestly, we're worse off than ever. I simply don't see a way out of this at all. And that's the end of chapter 7. The next chapter's called How Can They Escape? So I look forward to reading that to you tomorrow. Bye.